pad sound, but I want to add a little bit of movement to that. So something that is really useful and quite unique to this product is obviously the keyboard. So it's a PCB keyboard. It's a printed circuit board printed circuit board keyboard. So when I first got it from the product guys, like many people, we thought that's a little bit strange, and is that actually useful and playable? And it really is, because it's very, very sensitive and very responsive. So there is no mechanical action. On a normal key like the one behind me here, I've got to push it down, and then the note only takes when the key is depressed. Exactly the same as a piano. You don't just touch the key, you actually got to push it down before the hammer hits the string. With this, as soon as you touch it, it's going to respond. And also it's got pressure response, or pressure velocity. So what we can do with that is then assign that pressure to a parameter. So in this case, what I'd like to do, as I said, I would like to have this kind of effect, but I don't want it to be the LFO, because the LFO more than likely will be in a constant rate. So I can then go over to the matrix section here on the top left, and I'm going to move pressure. So this little dot is on pressure, and I'm going to have that control cutoff. Okay, so this is like me taking a cable and patching it in to into a patch matrix. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to turn the amount pretty high, so hopefully you can hear this over the internet. And I've set the amount there. So the harder I push the note, it's actually opening up the filter. What I can do is turn the cutoff down all the way, so that it only really takes it starts opening the filter. I believe our YouTube viewers are with us now as well, so thank you very much for joining us. We had a few YouTube issues. Those watching on Facebook, hang in there. We will be doing questions as well towards the end, so if you do have any questions, just pop them in the chat area. We've got a few product guys there as well who will be responding in real time, and then I'll be choosing the most fun and interesting questions and giving them a go, and hopefully adding more to your world of inspiration now that you've got some time indoors to make some music. So back to the filter cutoff. So I've assigned that on the matrix to the pressure. So it's really just the harder I push, the more that the filter is going to open. But I've got loads of other parameters as well on the matrix. So perhaps what I want to do, just to show you what the cycling envelope does, I'm going to have cycling envelope control perhaps the wave. Okay, so what is quite neat, and I'm just setting the amount of that to 86%, which is quite high, but for demonstration purposes. So what we've got here is the wave, and instead of me having to modulate or manipulate that in real time, I can actually have the cycling envelope control the wave. I can have that assigned to pitch, timbre, cutoff, many other things. So that is set quite high at the moment, and then you can hear the effect happening. So if I just go to another blank preset and do exactly the same as I did there, perhaps I want to have the cycling envelope control the pitch, which is always a good way. So cycling envelope to pitch, set the amount up, and this is going to sound pretty crazy. Okay, so if that is a little bit too much for you, we can just can reduce the amount of that as well, so it's just like very slightly detuned, which is quite interesting. Now of course this is actually it's bipolar, so any of these settings you can set to positive or negative. So if we turn it up, that's going to go into the positives, or we can set that into the negatives as well. So we're about halfway through already. Next part that I want to go through is the arpeggiator and the sequencer. So I think I've got a nice bass sound, one of the presets. Preset 1 is pretty good. 37 might be another nice one to try. Okay, so this is kind of like it's called chunk bass. It sounds a little bit like a fretless bass, but it's got a bit more attack going on. Quite robotic sounding. But we want to create some like 80s disco. Why not? Everybody's got to listen to 80s disco at these times. So put the arpeggiator on, click of a button, put in your notes, and you can hit the hold button as well. So the hold button is going to play the patterns that you've just played. And then you've also got the number of octaves, so that's just 1 octave. Set that to 2, 3 octaves. So that's quite an interesting thing to do. So this hold button, you just put it on and off, and then you're ready to go. If you don't have a hold on, when you release your fingers, that's gonna come off straight away. A lot of people ask what this thing does here. Well, this is actually it's a multi-purpose touch strip. So at the moment it's set to bend. So it's like a pitch bend wheel. And then you've got splice and dice. So quickly to show you what splice and dice does. So if I go to splice, it's just really playing around with the gates. So it's not playing all the notes. If I bring it down, you can hear it's playing sort of like 16th notes continuously. And this is just to throw in a little bit of randomness. And then the dice really is, it's like rolling a dice. You're not quite sure what you're gonna get. It's like a total randomness control. Really nice little feature, especially if you're playing live and you don't want the audience to always know what's gonna happen next. If you just want to throw in those little surprises, splice and dice is a really good little tool to be aware of. But then we want to go over to the sequencer. So I've got a very cool sequence here just to show you. I think it's number 5. Let's use this one. Okay, so we got a sound. It's got a lot of movement to it. We can see here on the top left in the matrix section what is assigned. So we've got cycling envelope controlling both pitch and the cutoff. So of course a parameter can be assigned to various other linking points. It is not just one connection. There's like multiple points. So again, the benefit of it being a digital matrix. So before, what I did on the bass sound was to put on the arpeggiator, which is quite a nice sound. But if I hold shift and push this button, as you see, shift has got a blue circle around it and sequencer is in blue. So if I push the two of those together, the sequencer comes on. So let's push play. Okay, that's pretty nice. So that is a pre-recorded pattern that we've got going there. It's actually really nice. But if I'm playing a song or if I'm playing live, I don't want it to be just the same sequence all the time. So MicroFreak offers a sequencer A, but a sequencer B as well. So I'm going to play this back, and then I'm just going to push sequencer B halfway through so that you can hear the two different sequences. So how do you record in a sequence? Well, let's just go to a very bland and boring waveform. Let's use that one. Okay, I'm going to put it in paraphonic mode again, just because I like paraphonic mode a lot. Play around with the ADSR slightly. Okay, yeah, already quite a nice pad sound, and just see how quickly I've got that going before adding anything in the matrix section. So I want to create my own sequencer. So I'm going to firstly enable. If I push play, nothing's going to happen because there isn't actually a sequence in there. So what that means for me is I can hit the record button and I can play in my own sequence. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm in record mode, and when I play the first note, it already skips through to step 2. So it knows the first note has been recorded. What is the next note going to be? So let's do... So I'm on step 5. I want to skip a step. So I'll push the hold button, and then that skips me over to the next step. And then what's cool about having the octave up, octave down is you can actually use this when recording in your steps in the sequencer. So if I push down, that note, down again, that note, and then go all the way to the top. Skip a step, play that, back down, and I've got one left. There you go. Okay, so I've got no idea what this is going to sound like. I've really just pushed random notes, but hopefully it's going to sound pretty good. Great. So straight away, this is sort of an idea coming into my head. I can sort of imagine, you know, big pads coming in underneath, and also you might have noticed as well, while the sequence is playing, I can actually play over the top of that sequence. If I wanted to record in a different sequence, I can go to B, hit record, and then I'm just going to hit random notes again. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this one is, because it's in paraphonic mode, I can actually record the sequence to play back paraphonically played notes, i.e. more than one note at a time. So let's push those two, and then one note, and then let's do so I'm on step 10. Okay, and it actually shows me what the notes are on there, and if I'm not happy with that, I can go back, delete just one step, and then replay that or edit it in real time. Let's skip a couple of steps, go down, and then a couple of high notes, and then we've got one left. Okay, let's hear that. And we can play it over that again. Cool. I'm quite liking that just for myself. So what I'm going to do is push the save button, and then it asks me where I want to save that to. So my blank patch, my init patch, was on 212. So I'm just going to save it there. But if I wanted to save it to override preset 1 or put it in a different section, that's totally fine. But I'm going to save it there, and we're ready to go. So I'm just going to play that back and then add a little bit of the splice and dice again. Spice and dice, not splice. Okay, that's sounding pretty neat. Now, if I wanted to, if I did something really cool in, say, order B or sequence B, I can actually copy and save that into sequencer A if I wanted to. So it's very easy just to hold a button and copy and paste them from one side to the other. Of course, a lot of these things can be saved in the MIDI control center. So we've got about 20 minutes left, and I'm going to talk about that very briefly as well. So just for those of you who joined from YouTube, the stream took an extra few minutes for that to go live. I just wanted to touch back on the matrix very quickly again. I'll spend 2 minutes on that, so you can have a look and see what that does. So the sound that I've created here, before it was just a simple waveform. There really wasn't very much going on at all, and I've played around with a few different things. I want the cycling envelope to probably control, let's have it control the wave. So I go over to my matrix and cycling envelope, which is over there, and I'm going to have that control the wave. So I push select, and then I'm just going to select the amount. Okay, let's try that. So I can hear that through my headphones. Hopefully you can hear the effect over the computer speakers as well. Okay, that sounds good to me. And then what I want to do is take the keyboard, which is pressure sensitive, and I want that to control the cutoff. So instead of me going like that, I just want to be able to push harder and for it to have that effect. So I'm going to click, set the amount. So or I can have the filter already a little bit open, so when I push it harder. Now this is very cool within this synthesizer itself, but where it becomes really super fun and inspiring is to use it with virtual instruments. So this is also a controller keyboard. If you want it to be that, you can use it, just turn down the volume and use this to control virtual instruments. Things like CS80V or Pigments, which are very, very expressive virtual instruments, are incredibly like fun and hands-on to use. So you can use this keyboard just as a controller should you need to. If you've got old external modules on the other side of the room, you can just connect it via MIDI. So we do have, if you go to the Arpeggiator website and look up MicroFreak on there, and we've got nice pictures of the back panel, it shows you all the connectivity options. So we've got 5-pin DIN MIDI cables that come in the box, and it's just got these little mini connectors. So you've got MIDI in and MIDI out. So even if you wanted this just to be a module and you've got a Keylab controller keyboard or anything like that that's got MIDI, you can just have that as a module in the background and control it. It connects via obviously MIDI. We've got CV gate connectivity, and we've got USB as well. So usually what I do is just have this connected to the laptop, and then if I'm playing on this, I'm sending MIDI signal through USB into Ableton, Logic, Pro Tools, Reaper, Cubase, and FL Studio, and all the others that are out there as well. So I'm going to end off just talking about the connectivity. So a few other things that we want to talk about. maybe for some of the YouTubers who joined a little bit later on, is just the section here. So as default, this is set to bend, but when we've got our arpeggiator or sequencer going, we can set it to splice and dice. And that's just going to throw in a nice little bit of randomness in there. So with the sequencer that we've got here, this one has got 16 steps. But for some of you, you might want to have that 32. You might want to have that 17 if you're doing non-4/4 things. Very easy to do. So this utility button is kind of opening up the hood of various in-depth functionalities that you can do. So the way this has been laid out is, if you want to do something, you just push a button. You don't have to do any scrolling, or you don't have to hold any shift and look for things, because with most Arturia products, I've got the AudioFuse Studio next to me, and if I want to do something, I just push a button, and it's the same with a synthesizer. However, if you did want to go a little more in depth, you certainly can. So I'll read it out for you in case you can't see it from there. So if I click on preset, it'll show me the preset volume. Now that is because if you make your own presets, you want to make sure that it's loud enough or not too loud compared to your next presets. We've got scale mode, which I will quickly show you. So this is something else that was in the firmware 2.0 that came out a couple of months ago. I think it was in January at the NAMM show that we released this. So select scale, and then you can choose the scale that you want. So it's set to global, the standard scale. If you want a major scale, minor, we've got the Dorian scale. So if I click OK, so all the black keys are the same notes as the white keys. It's not going up in increments. I'm still used to playing on global scale. You can choose the bend range. So obviously the bend range is going to be off the touch strip, or the pitch bend as it is, and you can set the range, from from pretty low, from like 1 all the way up to 24, so 2 octaves. So that's quite a nice touch. LFO retrig, and the thing that I wanted to show you as well is sequencer length. So this one on this blank preset was 16. If I wanted it to be 32, I can. If I wanted to be, keep on turning, if I want it to be 64. So you can have 64 steps. Now within that 64 steps, obviously you can play all different notes, and you can skip notes as well. So you can really have a lot of patterns going on, combined with the two sequences they've got, sequencer 1 and sequencer 2, or A/B as it's listed here. Also under utility, there's MIDI, so you can select your input channel, output channel. So if you did want this to control external hardware or even virtual instruments, you can just set your MIDI channels to control that over MIDI or USB. You've got your output destination. You can set it as MIDI through or MIDI merge. The sync and the CV gate. So at the moment, my source is internal. But if I connected it to Ableton, I might want to set that as USB, so that Ableton is telling this the tempo, when to stop and start. I can set that to MIDI or to clock as well. Or we've got an auto mode where it'll just pick it up sort of by itself. And then clock, you can set the PPQ. So if you want to connect that to, let's see if I can bring this up on the screen, something like this, which is the drum brute, which has got a whole lot of connectivity on the back there. Oops, you can take your just take a cable, plug that in, and you can set that to master or slave, and you can set the PPQ. So if you're using something by Arturia or Electron or Korg or something like that, sometimes they use a different PPQ just by using one of these little cables. So as a standalone synthesizer, it's super powerful. It's got 12 digital oscillators, and perhaps our product guys are working on a few new oscillators as well. I'm sure they won't mind me saying that. We haven't included effects on here, and I'm sure that this is one of the questions that are coming up. Now, the reason for that is there's so many good effects, hardware or software. If it's guitar effects, pedals, if it's things like the Arpeggiator reverbs or any of the other companies, and the things that come standard with DAWs are pretty decent now. So you don't really need to. And then also, if we put in cheap digital effects, they don't really sound good. It would have made the unit so much more expensive if we did it very well. But most people have got software or hardware effects there already. So that's that. No effects. We want it to be dry. If you want it, you just take that out into your Boss Metal Zone pedal, and you've got instant 9-inch nails. But you can drive things a lot as well, so there's a lot that you can play around with. So I think as far as the demonstration purposes go, that's sort of it for now. Do go back to the Arpeggiator website for more pictures. Obviously, we've got the full manual there, and we've got like FAQs and everything that'll help you along. So going over to a few questions, we're going to see how many of those we can go through. Polyphony is something that I've talked about and that I like a lot myself. So if we just go back to a blank sound, which I think maybe this one is. Okay, so that is obviously only playing one note at a time. As soon as I push paraphonic mode, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's something that the Matrix Brute can do as well. You've got 4-part polyphony, which is quite cool that you can do that on an analog synthesizer. So the very basic way of enabling that is just by pushing the paraphonic button. The way it works, well, essentially what it does on an analog synthesizer, it splits all 4 oscillators. So if you've got, like the Matrix Brute, 4 oscillators, each one will be enabled at a time. So you push the first note, that'll be oscillator 1, you push the second note, oscillator 2, and then oscillator 3, and then oscillator 4, and you can detune them so that you can create like some real interesting like chord sort of sounds. The MicroFreak doesn't quite work in the same way, but essentially it's taking one oscillator and splitting them up into different parts without losing volume, which is a very difficult thing to do, because if you take an oscillator and split it, generally all the sounds are going to be a lot softer. Yeah, that's how that works. Can you show how to create a clap with it? I can. So, well, I hope I can. I'm going to go through the different oscillator types and then choose noise, and then I'm just going to okay, so I mean, this is a very early 80s sort of clap sound, but play around with the filtering. So that's quite a noisy clap, but we can play around with that. Or we could turn that into but you can do the same with various other oscillators as well. You can really change it around and then spend some time, and even a sound like this, just by playing around with it, bringing in other parameters, you could probably come up with something. But yeah, with a clap, if you want like the analog clap, then I probably would use the noise oscillator for that. Yeah, the key and ARP row of the oscillator, that's it's quite an in-depth topic, and I think probably to do that justice, I probably need to spend about 10-15 minutes on that. We do have the tutorial videos online, so if you type in MicroFreak section, just type in MicroFreak tutorials. I think there are 5 tutorial episodes, so there's quite a lot happening there. Very good question number 4. Could you maybe demonstrate the automation motion record lanes a little bit? I can certainly give that a go. Okay, so I've got one sound happening there. I'm going to put on the sequencer. I'm going to hit record, and I'm going to play in 16 notes. Okay, what does that sound like? Okay, so what I can do now is essentially I can record in movements in real time. So I'm going to do a little bit of filtering and then a little bit of attack as well. So I'm going to play it and then hit record. So hopefully what you can hear there is that in real time I just closed and opened the filter and then playing it back. You can hear the result of that. I can do that with other things like so it's something that's a lot easier than what it sounds. You literally just hit record, play around with the knobs, and yeah, it's recorded in real time. Question 5, splice and dice, the main differences. So really, dice is just randomness. It can throw in total randomness. It could be pitch, it could be different notes or whatever. Splice is just a little bit sweeter, if that's the right word. It's not going to have such a major effect. Splice is more playing around with the gates, so it'll take out random notes here and there, and you can set the amount of that. So you can see the chili is getting fuller, and then dice is it literally is like rolling a dice. It's going to be so totally random. A few other things that I wanted to talk about, because I think the matrix deserves one last mention, is that if you're on the website, you'll see these sections here. So cycling envelope. So cycling envelope here you can use to control pitch, wave, timbre, cutoff, assign 1, assign 2, assign 3. You got envelope, LFO, which we haven't even looked at yet. So maybe I'll quickly just do something with the LFO. Create a sound, and I'm going to get LFO to control the pitch. So go to my matrix, and I've got my LFO there. Click, and I'm going to turn that up to control the pitch. Okay, so if that's maybe a little bit too much, then I can just turn the level of that down slightly, or the effect of that down. Okay, and then we've got different shapes. So and if you want it to be kind of subtle to create those sort of Boards of Canada slightly detuned sound, you can just have it very, very lightly. I like that. Bryan is going to save that. So there you go. I'm going to write a Boards of Canada sounding track. We've got through all the questions. So just to finish off by saying thank you very much for spending your time with us. This is going to be up as well after the live stream ends. So if you've got any questions, keep on sending through the questions, and check out the MicroFreak. It is available In the US, it's $299, and in Europe, it's $299 retail. So it's really good value for money. It's lightweight. Something that's really nice about this for someone like me who travels a lot is it doesn't have to be connected to a power supply. So it could be powered just by USB, or actually what I do when I'm on a train or a plane is just use like a phone power bank and then take my USB cable and plug it into that. So it's not heavy because they aren't the analog oscillators, so you can actually just use it by your phone bank, and you know, depending on how good the battery is, it can last you a good few hours. So that's just the USB port at the back. Last question has come in. Can you show the sequence smooth options in utility and preset? So if I go to utility and preset, then I can go to the smooth function. Let's find where that is. So I've got sequencer 1 smooth and sequencer 2 smooth. So really what that is just doing is smoothing between the steps in the sequence. Something else you can do, which is going to be my last point because I think this is a very cool feature, is let's put the Arpeggiator on this. Okay, so nice pattern going. I want to use the glide a little bit between the notes. So maybe what I'll do is slow it down a little bit. And then turn up the glide. Maybe I'll go to a different empty pattern because you can't hear it that well with a detune happening. So ARP is on. Okay, so you can hear the glide coming in there. But what I want to do is have glide control the LFO rate, which in theory is a very cool thing to be able to do, but you can't actually do it because glide isn't on one of these matrix sections here. However, so I said glide to control LFO rate. So if I go to this connection point here, let me take myself away so that you can see that. So you'll see this little light flashing there and it says assign 1. So if I hold this button and then turn glide on this screen there, that now says glide. So actually all these knobs that you've got here can pretty much be assigned to these empty slots. So now I've got the glide controlling the LFO rate. So if I want to take my LFO to control the pitch, set the amount. And then I've sort of done a double assignment there. So yeah, lots of really fun and interesting things that you can do. Comes with a whole bunch of presets straight out of the box. You can import presets. So we've regularly got sound banks and preset banks that we are releasing. I think there was a preset bank that was released this week, which has got some really nice like lo-fi early 2000 like almost like Arp Selena sort of sounds. You can just import that straight onto here, and then also you can change the order of the presets around. So that's pretty useful if you're going to be doing a live set where you've got a certain sound and then you want to flick through. You don't have to memorize with a piece of paper which preset to go through next. You can save your own presets. You can overwrite the presets there. If your friend on the other side of the world has created some very, very cool sounds, you're collaborating on a track, he or she can just send you those presets straight over as well. So that's it for now. This is the MicroFreak. Once again, we've got lots of videos up on the Arturia MicroFreak webpage and on YouTube as well. So thank you very much for spending an hour and 5 minutes with myself. I'm Bryan from Arturia, and keep on making music. This is my 5th week indoors of not seeing another human being, so MicroFreak has in a way become my best friend, and I hope it can become your best friend too. So I'm just going to finish off by playing a few sounds, and yeah, thanks very much for spending time with us.